Your organization, Black Alliance for Peace, and its members, including the Pan African Community Action Plan, are bringing attention to the billions of people still struggling under global capitalism, militarism, and colonialistic regimes. What types of initiatives have you been involved with?
Mhm. So I'm a member of Black Lives. I mean, well, both. Black Pan African Community Action is the organization. We're based in Washington D.C. and we're one of several organizations that are a member organization of the Black Alliance for Peace. Um, Pan African Community Action started a little bit before Black Alliance for Peace in November 2015. We're emerging, you could say, out of what most people know as the Black Lives Matter movement and this extrajudicial killings and brutality by police, and then Black Alliance for Peace about maybe a year or two after we was founded and created to address militarism and war and in all forms of imperialism by the U.S. in particular, but also by what we refer to as the pan-European patriarchal capitalism, capitalist patriarchy, and around the world. So it was all the Western powers and the NATO powers and the forces. And so to get right to some specifics in terms of your question, so when Pan African Community Action started, one of our main campaigns, and it's still the main campaign, is what we refer to community control over the police. So we've based on the Black radical tradition and the Black Panther Party's campaign for community control of the police. We're taking that up where people would be the most marginalized working class of our people, local communities would take control of our communities, and also that includes these, public safety. So we would be able to address, statutorily speaking, through a ballot initiative, and also be through organized people being organized, what public safety looks like, being able to hire, fire, set priorities and policies around what would normally be called policing in our communities. And then also, as members of Black Alliance for Peace, we've taken up Black Alliance for Peace has several right now, as we've grown and expanded several programs, but related directly to PACA's one is also abolishing the 1033 program that militarizes police forces across the country. It's the 1033 program is known as that authorizes Department of Defense to transfer military equipment to local different police forces around the country, and then also the shutdown AFRICOM, the U.S. Africa Command in Africa. We're also part of the coalition to close all foreign bases. So we also, in addition to wanting to shut down AFRICOM or working to shut down AFRICOM, we also work for and believe that all of the over 800 or so military bases, U.S. military bases across the world, need to be shut down. And when we talk about militarism and military bases, we're almost scratching the surface when it comes to U.S. imperialism in all its forms, which is also one of the things, just in general, what we're trying to confront.
Thank you. And you've just named a number of issues that the Black Alliance for Peace is working on or has spoken out about. Speaking of militarization of police, the prison industrial complex, its torture and confinement of political prisoners, and ending the brutal sanctions against nations that reject U.S. imperialism. What are your views on the International Commission of Inquiry's recent panel on systemic racist police violence?
Mhm. Well, we concur with the findings. It's right along in the line of, again, we could refer back, like we were talking about the Black radical tradition, and back in the 1950s, we also took a number of people, took the case of African people, Black people in the U.S. to the United Nations, and then we charged genocide in 1951, led by like W.B. Du Bois and so many other people, George Crockett, and then also, so now fast forwarding, we're in a movement moment where even the Commission, the United Nations, is taking up and doing studies in 2016. Also, PACA, our organization, Pan African Community Action, were the anchor group for the United Nations working group of experts on people of African descent coming to the U.S. in 2016 to look at the human rights abuses conditions of African people in the U.S. And so we came. They brought them to Washington D.C. and a number of other places, and they had similar findings. The finding of this commission was that this is tantamount to crimes against humanity, and that the finding was that the United States, well, the police departments, which I think we might have a little issue there in terms of how we get redress, but police departments need to become under investigations of the International Criminal Court, which we don't disagree that there's a lot of egregious things police departments do. It's just a matter of how we look at getting redressed and how that is. We believe that it's the collective humanity, the collective masses organized and making the most the challenges, demands that directly address our condition is really what's needed. I think these bodies, while it's very good and it exposes things and gives us political education around and gives us rallying points for campaigns, I don't know how much power they would have to actually, enforce anything.
Now, is the U.S. police force being used as a domestic army for capitalists and neo-colonialists?
Mm-hmm. That's the origin of it. I mean, if we look at it, and I think it's happily so that it's much more known now that the history of and origins of the earliest U.S. police come out of the slave patrols in the South, and to put down insurrections, which is what we're tantamount to the workers and wildcat strikes now, and also in the north, put down insurrections and catch, escaped Africans, enslaved Africans. And then in the north also, and this is where we see it refining, the private security agencies. These are the origins, the beginnings of the history of the U.S. police. And so now under public, not really even public, but under state, they're an extension of the state, which is here to, in this settler colonial country, the three hydras of settler colonialism in the U.S. from basically anywhere are it's white supremacy, capitalism, and patriarchy, and the police are there to enforce that. Now we're in a movement and a historical point in time of what was referred to as neoliberalism, the age of neoliberalism, privatization, austerity, commodification of things, and seeking private solutions to things, which we can see in the pandemic, is that the state, and we're seeing what would be known as a surplus population. People who cannot fit into the shrinking economy that capitalism has, that's based on profit before people. And so now they have to deploy in a militarized fashion now, because we're seeing militarized police and increasing of militarization. In fact, even this Biden administration has increased it in the short time that it's been here. While everyone was focusing on Trump, the Biden administration has increased military transfers of equipment, that they're having to increasingly resort to the militarized policing to keep the colonized subjects in check, and that would be us. We see that after the Derek Chauvin verdict and everything.
Now, speaking of just the police, previously when we had you on, we spoke about Haiti and the situation over there. The U.S. Biden-Harris administration has shown a lack of commitment to the Haitian people and are propping up seemingly what is to be seen as a puppet government. What's the significance of May 1st for the poor and for the workers in Haiti?
That's a very important question. I think the significance is huge, and people in this country were dissuaded from understanding May Day, as it's commonly known, where the laboring classes have claimed May 1st as May Day, International Workers' Day, from an incident actually that started in the United States in the late 1800s. But the United States, because it's so committed to capitalism and neoliberalism, it doesn't really talk about May Day, and so it's grown tremendously in other countries, and Haiti in particular, which we actually we probably mentioned before how it was the first republic, democracy in the world, actually, to abolish slavery, but also its history of resistance, not only to overthrow French colonialism, but also insisting over the decades against U.S. Neocolonialism, all the way, having to resist the U.S. occupation and whatnot. We're talking about the laboring classes in Haiti. So Haiti has constantly, and through their resistance over the decades, has proven has symbolized the an uncompromising resistance of the laboring people against neocolonialism and imperialism.
Now, May 1st is also the deadline that the United States agreed to last year to pull out of Afghanistan. Will the U.S. leaving Afghanistan end the suffering of the Afghani people?
Mhm. Um, well, first, we don't believe they've already proven that they're not even going to leave, and they haven't left. They're still leaving people behind, and some troops behind, and that's not even counting the special operations forces and their mercenaries and whatnot in Afghanistan. But at least it was if they did leave, which really right now, because they haven't left and they're claiming this tie to September, this pushing it back to September 11th is doing a couple things. It's reneging and dishonoring the agreement that they made, which we've seen already has consequences according to how the Taliban has responded and responded to that, and then a breaking of the agreement. And it also ties it, to this propaganda of tying it to September 11th, as if it was for some reason that was why the United States is in Afghanistan, which is not.
Right.
But the problem is that even if, well, the Afghan people in Afghanistan will have its problems no matter what. The United States has certainly exacerbated those problems. They have not solved anything. They've made it much more worse. But the precondition for the people of Afghanistan of solving their problems has to be for the United States to leave without any kind of preconditions or anything. It has to be that. If it won't solve their problems, it is still the precondition for a solution to their problems. They can't solve them as long as the United States remains there and the capacity of the thing.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman, for joining us again and for all of your insight on these worldly affairs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's pause again for a word from our sponsors. Afterward, Doris Martin will be on to discuss his group, Man Up Flint. We'll be right back.
Be a part of the force that powers truth in journalism. Your support helps to combat false media. Cash App NNV News.
Greetings from National Network View. This week's Final Call cover story headline memorializes the late, great DMX. Last week, DMX's life was celebrated at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Large crowds gathered to honor the legend. They were there to remember a man who wasn't afraid to express his pain with the world. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke via Zoom to the large audience. He delivered words of comfort, wisdom, and guidance to everyone under the sound of his voice. DMX will live on. This FCM volume number 29 edition features the middle page article is a transcript of what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said at the memorial. To read more, subscribe to finalcalldigital.com and tune in to the all-new Final Call Radio. This is the NNVnews.com Final Call cover report.
This is Sister Sajda Muhammad. We are proud to announce that the Sajda House commemorative Elijah coins are finally here. This priceless heirloom, made from recycled copper from the messenger's home, is now available at sajdahouse.com.
Please make sure you leave your comments and questions in the comment section below. Follow us on Facebook, National Network View, and make sure to check us out on Twitter as well, National Network View. This is Sergio Gutierrez with National Network View, signing off.